Trying to speed up your language learning can quickly lead to overwhelm. I experienced this firsthand when my experiment with ChatGPT failed. Now, I want to share what happened and give you 6 tips so you can avoid the mistakes that I made. 朋友们，你们好. My name's Matthew. I used to work for Fluent Forever, where I was mentored by the American polyglot and best-selling author Gabriel Wyner. Nowadays, I share my own tools and techniques to help you learn a language effectively by yourself. So I've been diving into ChatGPT for language learning recently. Like many of you, I'm always on the hunt to find ways to make the process faster and more efficient. That's when I had this idea. What if I could use ChatGPT to make me sentences that included multiple new foreign words that I wanted to learn? One sentence with many new vocabulary. Sounds like a smart hack, right? Well, let's find out. My goal was simple: learn more words faster. I figured if I could cram multiple new words in a single sentence, I could double or triple my learning speed, or even more. 1 new word in a sentence is 1 times the speed. 2 new words in a sentence, 2 times the speed. 5 new words in a sentence, 5 times the speed, right? It seemed logical, but there was a lot at stake here. If this method didn't work, it could mean weeks or even months of wasted time and effort. And I've got a lot of languages that I want to learn. Still, the reward could be potentially so high, so I gave it a try. 5x the speed. 5x the speed or more, huh? I started by gathering a list of foreign words that I wanted to learn. Then I organized that list into smaller groups, which I could then feed to ChatGPT. Next, I asked ChatGPT to create a sentence using a few of those words at a time. I did this experiment with Mandarin Chinese, Spanish, and French. For the next month or so, I tried to learn languages using these sentences that contained multiple new words. And with that, I hope to see a major boost in my vocabulary retention. The first few sentences that ChatGPT generated were interesting. I was actually pretty impressed. The sentences looked solid and I felt I was onto something here. So I went ahead and created flashcards with each of these sentences, thinking that this was the breakthrough that I needed. I felt a sense of accomplishment, like I was hacking the system, like I was so brilliant. But little did I know, the real challenge was just beginning. Then it started. I noticed that many of the sentences didn't make much sense. ChatGPT was trying to cram all of these new words into one sentence, and sometimes it just did not work. 1. Use AI tools cautiously. ChatGPT started generating sentences that were, well, weird. Some sentences didn't make sense, and other sentences included word forms that I didn't ask ChatGPT to use. I kept saying it to it, hey, use this form of the word or that form of the word, but it didn't want to listen to me. It kept coming out with the same garbage. I found myself spending more time fixing the sentences than actually learning from them. It was like ChatGPT was trying too hard. Have you ever been to one of those parties and you meet this person that tries too hard to get everyone's attention or to please people? They use fancy sentences and big words to make them sound smart, but really something seems off about them to you. That's what ChatGPT was like here. The sentences were either too complex or they just sounded so unnatural. And that's when I started to worry. Not only that, but I realized I wasn't retaining the information. Remember those flashcards that I said that I had made from the sentences ChatGPT made for me? Well, they weren't working. Whenever I tried to review the ChatGPT sentences, that were made a few weeks before, I was spending so much time trying to even understand what the sentences meant, let alone actually learning the new words from them. I was lost and confused. At first, I thought it was just me, that maybe I wasn't putting enough effort, or I needed to really focus my brain a lot better each time I did reviews. But then I started to dread reviewing the cards. They were just too hard, and I felt I was making zero progress. I even considered quitting the experiment altogether to avoid overloading yourself. But then I took a step back. I realized that trying to learn too many new words at once was actually holding me back. I started reading more about linguistics research, and I checked up on how do people effectively acquire new vocabulary. And the research confirmed what I had experienced in this whole experiment. I found that while learning new words in context is certainly effective, when you try to learn too many new words all at once, this can actually overwhelm your brain. 3. Simplify your approach. I had to admit to myself that if there were too many unknown words in a sentence, then learning from that sentence could actually backfire. Turns out I was trying to do too many things at once, and it wasn't making things easier, it was making things harder for me. So I decided to change my approach. Instead of trying to cram multiple new words into one sentence, I just focus on one new word at a time. That one new word could be in an example sentence, but I had to make sure that many of the words in the sentence I actually already knew, but for that new word. And you know what? It started working again. I had actually been doing this kind of thing before this whole ChatGPT experiment, and this whole thing just confirmed to me that doing this was a whole lot better than my multiple new words in one sentence experiment. 4. Incorporate real-world input. After that, I switched to a more manageable approach, learning one new word at a time in the context of a sentence and supplementing it with real-world input like TV shows and movies.
El sol derritió la nieve y nos hundimos hasta las rodillas.
When I used real-world input and authentic materials like that, this helped to provide context and helped to reinforce the new vocabulary much more naturally.
Tu gardes bien cette oreillette, faut que je puisse te contacter n'importe quand.
It felt like a weight had been lifted. The sentences were much easier to understand, and I actually started to remember the words. 5. Build a sustainable habit. I even started to look forward to my study sessions again. It wasn't just about learning new words, it was also about building a habit that can last. In the end, I didn't get what I originally wanted. I originally wanted a fast track to master vocabulary with ChatGPT, but I got something even better. A sustainable approach to language learning and vocabulary acquisition that just works for me. And if you're struggling like I was, maybe it's time to rethink how you're learning languages too. 6. Reflect and adjust. So what did I learn from all this? Sometimes the quick fix isn't the best fix. Trying to cram too much information in one go can actually slow you down. ChatGPT can really be helpful because it has so much information and it can provide us with all this data and all this knowledge all at once, instantaneously. But we humans have to keep reminding ourselves that we're not robots, we're not AI like ChatGPT, and we still actually have limitations. Unfortunately, I can't learn all the words that ChatGPT feeds me at the same speed that it can. We have our limitations, and I have my limits. There has to be some sort of middle ground where we use the power of AI and ChatGPT within the framework of what we're actually capable of doing. These technologies certainly can boost us up in terms of our language learning efficiency, but when it comes to how our human brains work, some things will just have to take time. By focusing on one word at a time and learning it in a natural context, I found a method that works for me. It's all about finding what works for you. So what about you? Have you used AI tools like ChatGPT to learn a new language? Let me know what's worked for you and what hasn't worked for you in the comments below.